Boats and Hose worldwide. Boats and Hose. All right, 8 o'clock. Let me get this rolling. I can't tell. I haven't streamed YouTube in forever, so I can't tell how many people are on. So we'll just have to do this like the chicken flies and wing it. Give a couple minutes for any stragglers to show up. I get prepped here on my other screen. Let me pop this chat out. All right. Can't tell. It says nobody's on but me. But like I said, this is going to be recorded to watch anytime. So, yeah, it's not a big deal. I know it's Saturday at 8 o'clock, and some people have better things to do than watch this. All right, so we'll get it going. I was gonna use this one to go over the two guides, just more in depth with a video that I put up in the group. So if you haven't seen those, let me pull that open. So if you're in the 3D Printing for Profit group and you go to the guide section, you'll see there's two: getting started and learning 3D print. So we're gonna kind of hit these up, and I think I'll do this again next weekend, I guess. And before next weekend, I'll have 2 more guides up, which will get more into the meat of the selling on Etsy. But this right here is the biggest hurdle for everybody, is learning the 3D print if you haven't done it before. So yeah, we'll go over that stuff. All right, so let me go to my agenda. You can tell I really prepped for this. So getting started, what we need. First, you'll need a computer. You don't really need anything too glorious to start. Like I think when my brother started, he didn't have anything really. He had a Mac. But I think his wife used that mostly. For whatever reason, he just bought a very cheapish laptop from Micro Center, something on sale. And that worked absolutely fine. So for getting started, 3D printing for profit, all you need computer-wise is just basically something running a modern OS. I don't think slicers get too bogged down, and we'll get into slicers here in a little bit and what slicers are if you're not familiar with that. Second thing you'll need is a 3D printer. So if you've been in the group, you've seen we put this recommended gear list up with links. It is in the, let me go back to the main. There is a file section. So if you go into the file section, this is a printing profile for the Ender 3 printer if you get a certain slicer. Simplify 3D. These are world famous printing profiles. You know you love them, those who use them. But in this recommended gear with links, this will keep getting added to as people talk about stuff or hey, what's up, C3D Prop Shop? Yeah, this is my old YouTube channel, isn't it? Yeah, it's up, Prop Shop. I was just running a couple friends through, like, that wanted to get started 3D printing. So I spun up the old YouTube channel to run them through how to get started. But airborne, aerosol, bitch. But hey, how's it going? All right, so back on track. In the recommended gear list, if you're just starting out, and I caveat that I have been off Etsy for quite a while. I kind of walked away from the whole thing, but I've helped people throughout the years that wanted to start up, and everything has pretty much remained the same. There's some intricacies of Etsy that still I'm not 100% spun up with, so I have to ask people that are currently in the mix. But I just the most recent person that I walked through is a guy that I work with, a Marine captain, and the core principles still work. All right, brother. Hey, thanks for stopping by. You probably see some videos kick off on this channel as I run these people through some making money on Etsy or other places. But hey, thanks for stopping by. So back to the Marine captain. I ran the Marine captain through the core principles, and everything pretty much still stayed the same. So it's been recently beta tested again, and it works. So I'm just sharing the love again with a couple friends and friends of friends if you want to invite somebody. So anyway, I kind of got lost in the thought. So Squirrel, where'd Squirrel go? So the printer that I recommend to start with is the Ender 3 or the Ender 3 Pro. There's a $20 difference between the two printers. The $20 from the Ender 3 to the Ender 3 Pro, I have them pulled up here. Here we got the Ender 3 Pro. So you can get this, I think, with a coupon down a lot cheaper. I don't know why the price is higher. There's always coupon codes if you search on the internet at the Creality store. But for example, if you go into the Micro Center store, if you happen to have a Micro Center close to you and you're lucky enough, you can get the Ender 3 Pro for $199. And here it was, I think, for $190. I don't know why it's showing up for $223, but once again, if you Google Ender 3 Pro, there's a lot of people that sell them. You can get them all over the place. And you should expect to pay around the $190 range. And for the Ender 3, the regular Ender 3, you should expect to pay about $170. What's the difference between the two? The core differences are the Ender 3 Pro has a more beefier y-axis, which is supposed to help with printing artifacts. But my most recent Padawan that's been through this says that it didn't make a difference. Like, he has a lot of Ender 3s. If you see, the Ender 3 has a lot slimmer rail. I think it's 20 millimeters, vice 40 millimeters. The Ender 3 Pro has a Meanwell power supply, which is a branded power supply, vice a cheap, like, no-name Chinese power supply. I mean, the Meanwell power supply, I think, is a cheap Chinese power supply. It's just branded. So, and the Ender 3 Pro comes with a flexible magnetic bed, which I don't use and I just chuck anyway. So in the end, I may be just paying the extra. And I think there's some fan and cooling differences from what I read. I'll put a post up about the differences. I'll find an article or something that lists the differences between the Ender 3 and the Ender 3 Pro, and I'll put them in the Facebook group. Don't know what those differences are besides the ones that I mentioned, but no matter which printer that you buy, you're going to want to upgrade. You're going to want to put a glass bed on, and you're going to want to put new springs on. And somewhere in that, when I get around to updating that recommended gear list, I will have all of that, like links to the springs and links to the glass bed underneath. If you want to be really cheap with the glass bed, you can buy mirror tile at Home Depot or Lowe's. Let's just pick Home Depot. You can buy 12 by 12 mirror tile. And they also sell this at IKEA. It's just very cheap boxed. for less than $10 a package for a whole bunch. This is something else I'll find and I'll link to. Maybe at Lowe's I can find it easier. But anyway, mirror tiles 12 by 12. I mean, but anyway, for sure they sell a big old box of it here. You can get it by the square foot. They sell a big old box of it at Lowe's and Home Depot. It's just like some no-name brand 12 by 12 inch mirror tile, and it costs like less than $10, and you can cut it with a glass cutter. They sell glass cutters on Amazon, and you can cut to shape, and you can save money. Or you can get yourself a like Ender 3 Pro glass bed. They call them an Ultra Base. These all I use is the Ultra Base. But if you're trying to save money and start this up on a budget, you don't have to spend the $18. Like for this is $18.99. You don't have to spend the money for the glass bed. You can just cut mirror tile. And when I started out, all I did was cut mirror tile to everything that I needed to cut. For the bigger printers, the CR10S, if you have the money and you want to start out with a bigger printer, you don't want to have all bigger printers because you're going to need space for all this. But the 12 by 12 mirror tile just fits right on the bed, so you don't have to worry about it with the bigger printer. All right. So that is the 3D printers in the nutshell. I always recommend starting out with the Ender 3 Pro. It's cheap. It's reliable. It's easy to get spun up on, and just all in all, it's just a great printer. It's one of my favorites, and I'll always, even though I have bigger printers, I'll always default to printing on the Ender 3 Pro. I just think that it is like one of the best printing printers I've ever had. But all Creality printers are generally pretty good. I don't have too much in the complaint department. And now we got 3D printing slicers. So on top of a 3D printer, you'll need to get a slicer. I've linked like maybe what I think is the 3 most common 3D printing slicers. We have Cura with a link to the Cura page to download. We have Prusa Slicer, which is also free, with the link to download. A lot of people love Prusa Slicer, and we have my personal favorite, Simplify 3D, which is the only paid one. There's supposedly a big update that was supposed to come out this year. It never materialized so far, so I don't know what the deal is with the big update. But anyway, you can buy it, and then you can take one of my awesome, amazing, beautiful print profiles and plug it right in that slicer, and it does most of the work for you. But there is lots of profiles out there for Cura, and there is profiles out there for Prusa Slicer for every printer, and there is some stock profiles. So as you're learning to 3D print, I wouldn't worry too much if you want to use the free ones, because there is profiles. I have personally found, and even John, my most recent Padawan, who's not a Padawan anymore, he's graduated. In February, he had a $2,000 plus month. So, I mean, he's well into graduation criteria. So he's not a Padawan, he's a full-blown Jedi. He's got his own lightsaber now, and he's kicking ass. And he just validated that the system still works. So anyway, I recommend personally, I've just found Simplify 3D to be consistent, and it's got better supports. If you can afford it, get it. But if not, you don't need it, and there's no pressure to buy it. And you could always buy it later once you got money coming in. And filament. So some filament I recommend, like 3D Solutech. I have a link into that document in the group. I really like 3D Solutech. I've always had good results with it. It's barely ever let me down. So that is good. I also have really never been let down by Inland Filament. Inland Filament used to be really cheap. It was $14.99 a roll. But looks like they've raised the price for their PLA. So the one thing I didn't mention is I always recommend with your Etsy shop, unless you have some niche and you need to print like very structurally stable models that can go out in like high heat, you just start printing your stuff with PLA. PLA is like a plant-based plastic. It's usually made with like corn husk, or it's made of like beets. It's just a corn. It's a plant sugar based bioplastic, and it gives you little hippy dippy taglines to put in your Etsy listings, like "Hey, this is eco-friendly" and whatnot. But as you can see, like we have PLA Plus, which is a like stronger, more. It can go in some higher temps, I believe, and it's got some benefits. It's not as brittle. So you got PLA Plus for $18.99. You got regular PLA for $19.99. And Micro Center used to not ship, but now they ship, and I think it's free shipping. So, and I heard that they ship pretty quick. Um, so inland is always an option. The one thing I did not like about Micro Center, about inland filament, is this was a big thing for me. Is if you're buying multiple rolls, the color doesn't always exactly match from roll to roll. So you may have turquoise, and you may order 3 rolls of turquoise, and 2 of those rolls of turquoise may be a different shade of turquoise and the other one. So if you're doing like longer prints where you have to cross rolls over, you're gonna have mismatched filament. I don't think that's necessarily a huge deal, but for me, like back in the day, I started out and I bought a lot of inland because I could run the Micro Center, and I didn't. When I started out, I didn't throw a lot of money into it because the missus didn't want me tossing a lot of money into it. So I basically started out with a couple primary colors, and then on my Etsy shop, I listed availability for. And this was a mistake in hindsight, but I listed basically every color that inland had. And then if someone would order something in like a color I didn't have, like turquoise or like Egyptian blue right here, because I would be that dumb and I would list like 5 different types of blue. In hindsight, I should have just had the primary colors start now. And if I wanted to do something exotic, then that's fine. But or let them let the customer like have the ability to request a custom color. But dumb me, put every color under the sun, and then someone would order something in Egyptian blue, and I would have to run to Micro Center over and over and over and over again. The mileage was a tax deduction, which was nice, and I didn't realize how much that mileage could really return on your taxes. But the negative was I was constantly running a Micro Center over and over again, and the business grew pretty fast, and I was constantly running a Micro Center to buy printers. So I recommend starting out if you can afford it, just get a couple of the basic primary colors. If money's tight and you're trying to like spend as little as possible to kick off your business, get one printer and get 1 or 2 rolls of filament to learn how to 3D print. And after that, you can list and put the colors on and do what I did, which is you get an order and then you would have to run out and buy it. The good thing is if you like when I did this, Amazon didn't have next day delivery in my area. It was like 3-day, I think, at the time, because I lived far enough away from the Baltimore hub that it just didn't hit me for same day or next day or 2 days. So everything was like it seemed to be 3-day. Now I got next day and same day. So I don't find that. Well, I wouldn't find that as much of a problem out as if you live anywhere, even like 2-day. You can build a buffer, and that really won't be too much of an issue. So I really wouldn't worry about filament too much. Just get yourself enough and whatever's cheapest to. There's plenty of brands. So if you search, also, I didn't put the end list of whatever, but you can just put PLA filament, and there may be cheaper options as you are teaching yourself. Filament price seems like it's come out. You used to be able to find on Amazon like some real budget filaments, like $12. Anyway, like here is $16.99. It's got good enough reviews. I'd have no problem ordering that. And this is what I would do. I just order stuff and look at reviews. Sometimes you got a dud brand of filament, and that kind of stuff happens. Well, yeah, what are you gonna do? So that's the gloss over on filament. And of course, if you have any questions about this, that's what the Facebook group is for. You can go in there and feel free to fire away with your questions. So next thing you'll need to start your business up is a printer. You're going to need a printer to print. You're going to need 2 kind of printers. I should have put this in and I'll have to update the getting started because I just thought of this. You're going to need a regular printer because you have to print invoices out for your Etsy orders, and you're going to need a label printer. You're going to want a label printer at some point. You don't need a label printer to start. When you start, you can just print your labels out on paper. You can cut them and you can tape them. I can tell you that when you start doing any kind of volume, that you will want to drink bleach after a while of doing that, because when you're cutting 20 labels out of printed printer paper labels that aren't sticky, and you're cutting them and taping them, it is a chore and it's not fun. With a label printer, the one I recommend is the Derp, the Dymo 4XL. But like I said, there may be like a lot cheaper options now. It seems like the label printer market has really blown up, and I see some for $100 that say they integrate with Etsy. So I would take my recommendation with a grain of salt and do your research or ask in the group. Or I'm sure there's a cheaper option now. I use it. It was reliable, and you get, well, no matter what label printer you get, there's a trick to getting free labels from UPS. And at some point, I'm going to do a post, or I will add that to the guide as I think about these things. And I'm going to go back and watch this and make sure I captured all my do outs, because I don't have paper pen to do it. I guess I could write it on a OneNote or something, but I'll just go back and cruise through it like 3 times speed and figure out what I missed, or some do outs for myself. But anyway, you can get free labels from UPS. You just, in a nutshell, you sign up for a UPS business account, which is free. And then when you have a UPS business account, you can go to order supplies, and they will send you as much 4x6 labels as you want. And I ordered just one order of 4x6 labels, and like the next day, UPS truck dropped off 5,000 thermal labels. So I never had to get labels again. And actually, when I shuttered my own Etsy business, I just took them and dropped them off in front of like the local UPS store. They were closed because I didn't know what to do with them. I had so many, and I felt bad because I got them for free. So anyway, I gave them back. So you will, if you don't have a printer, I personally recommend the Epson EcoTank. I think this is the cheapest one you can get into. The reason I recommend it is because HP is the devil. I will never buy an HP printer again, so long as I live. And 2, these have the EcoTank. So once you buy this, it comes with enough ink that you probably won't have to get more ink for 1.5 to 2 years. I think the ink that came with my printer lasted well into like 1.5 years range before I had to refill it. It lasts forever. I think you get like 7,000 pages off of your initial ink fill, and the ink is cheap. You can get a whole set online for like $35 maybe. I think 35ish. You can get like no name inks for 25, but I don't know. It's that cheap that it doesn't pain me to stick with Epson for $35. So while this may be a little more expensive than if you're trying to stay on a budget and you see that HP like $79 printer, or even a budget Epson offering, I will tell you that you will pay tenfold in the long run buying ink cartridges. And odds are, if you're watching this, you already know what I'm talking about, because you have already been stuck at some point in your life buying ink cartridges. So those are my 2 printer recommendations. So for a label printer, but like I said, I'll talk to people, and I'll see, and I'll do some research, and I'll try to find like if there is a very budget focused label printer, because the once you start doing any kind of, it's fine when you begin to print your labels out on a regular printer. Like I said, you shouldn't feel like you have to go out and get a label printer from the start. But when business takes off, if you're doing, let's say, 70 to 100 orders a month, you are going to get tired of cutting and taping labels to your boxes. One thing I forgot to put in this list is, where is the list? Shoot. One thing I forgot to put in this list of, or in the first startup guide, is you're going to need boxes. And I don't know, I'll have to get with some of the Padawan graduates who are now all Jedis and Jedi Masters to get the skinny on where to get boxes. I just don't. I'm not up on it anymore. So note to self that we have to add boxes to this and bubble wrap, and there's just like tape. So there's now that I'm thinking through this, there's quite a bit that I forgot. Tape, bubble wrap, or you can use peanuts, or whatever packing material. But you got to have some way to pack it and get it to the customer. You don't have to really stock up too much on the front end, but just enough to keep. When I started, I was doing a lot of Walmart runs, so I would run to Walmart because they would sell like 4x6, 6x6. You know, they had all different box. They have a business section, and they have all sorts of boxes that you can buy in onesies in the business section. A lot more expensive than if you buy it in bulk, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. 40 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents a box. The problem was they were never in stock, so I'd have to go to like 5 different Walmarts to find what I needed because the website would show in stock and you'd get there and they didn't have it. So that is a huge pain. So if you can start off buying a bulk, I think my most popular box size was 6x6. And then I think I had either 6x10 or 6x8. But you'll quickly find, and I guess others that are currently rocking and rolling will chime in the group with their favorite box size. So I think that kind of wraps it up. Oh, space, and so you're going to need some sort of space. This might be a problem for some people with space. The good thing about with 3D printing and Etsy is you can rack these things. So you can get like I forget what the standard like storage rack dimensions is, but you can get one storage rack and then you can rack these printers. The Ender 3 is small enough that you can put that storage rack in. It doesn't take much space, and I think you can put 3 on a row. So 3, 6, 9, 12. So you could have 12 stacked vertically. So that one rack would give you room to grow. Of course, if you're a wee little lad, you're going to need a step ladder to get up to the high ones. But if you're short on space, that would be the way to go. So far as resources, they don't take much in the way of electricity. I think running couple dozen of these things, I never really saw my electric bill spike for anything. $20 a month, maybe 40. I don't think I went higher. I don't know. I read that they take less than a 60-watt light bulb, so of electricity. So I never really, and my electric bill sucks, but I never saw a real big spike in electric. And so the one thing that I did experience though was depending on how many that you're putting, and you may have to run extension cord from other outlets. I had too many on one breaker, and they would pop that breaker. So you either have to upgrade that breaker to something with more amps, or you have to run extension cords from another room or another part of the room that's on a different breaker, so that you're not popping one breaker. And it wouldn't pop consistently, but sometimes if you were like powering printers all on at once and kicking the preheat function to load them, then it would become an issue. All right, so that pretty much summarizes getting started and what you will need. Feel free to, when you're in the Facebook group, feel free to ask questions about any of that, and either myself or someone that's already rocking and rolling will answer them. But that's sort of the upfront skinny. Computers, 3D printer, Ender 3, Ender 3 Pro. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I always bought the Pro. It's only $20 more, and I felt like like I said, the beefier base, and maybe not so much the Meanwell power supply. I think that's people swear by it. I don't know. Never had a problem. I never burned my house down, but then my friend John said that he's running the cheaper Ender 3, not the Pro, and it's just fine. Upgrade bed and springs. You're going to need slicer. I went over those, but you're going to get into slicer in detail when we talk about this next section. If you've never printed. Filament. I went over some filament, but you can always ask for recommendations in the group. Charlie Bravo is 3D printing his ass off, and John Diamond is 3D printing his ass off, so they can always chime in with recommendations. I still use 3D Solutech pretty consistently, and I use Inland pretty consistently. You're going to need a regular printer, and at some point when your business is bumping, you're going to want a label printer, and you're going to need space. So Now we get into the hardest part of this whole process. And this is the part where I say, if I could teach my brother how to do this, or if my brother, I contributed a lot to my brother, but he did a lot on his own through the power of YouTube. But this is the hardest part of the process. And once you get past this hurdle, I think the rest, while it's still hard work, you'll have no problem with. So here is learning the 3D print in a nutshell. This is where you're going to have to dedicate a day or a week. There's one channel that I think has pretty much on the Ender 3 Pro the most detailed series, and that is this guy Chip. And he's got two playlists. He's got one playlist, the Get Started 3D Printing Using the Ender 3. So in that guide section, what you're going to do, and this is your homework, is you're going to watch all of these videos. I don't know what this private one is. Maybe it's just something he got rid of. And then when you're done watching all those videos, you're going to go to the second playlist right here, and you're going to watch the entire Ender 3 playlist, which goes more into detail, especially on using the slicer and whatnot. For those that have decided at some point that they, for a slicer, if they wanted to pay for Simplify 3D to benefit from my most amazing 3D printing profiles that are world famous, I will put on a class just like this, and I will go over how to use Simplify 3D. I mean, there's plenty of YouTube videos on it, but with print profiles, it becomes a lot easier. It takes a lot of the guesswork out. You just load up a profile and to go. The thing you're going to have the hardest time with is leveling your print bed, but you're going to learn all about leveling through the process of going through these videos. Now, this is the part like when we, for those that don't know, the history of 3D printing for profit is this started, I don't know, what was it, 2016? I got a 3D printer for Christmas. I started thinking, hey, I can make money with this. I made an Etsy shop, and at some point I was at like $2,000 a month, and I was telling other people on like Facebook groups, hey, I'm making money 3D printing. And I probably should have led with this. This is kind of the motivational part. But anyway, I was making money 3D printing, and a bunch of people were like, you're lying, you're not making money, you can't make that kind of money 3D printing. And I was like, no, I am. Look, I was showing like Etsy screenshots. So there was this huge course that was just saying you can't do it. You can't. It's impossible. No one's going to buy this shit. Who's going to buy 3D printed stuff? So I said, I'll show you how to do it. So I made this group, 3D Printing for Profit. And I think like in our group is the two like original first that joined, which is Joe and C Black or Charlie Black joined, and they were like, hey, I'll do whatever you say. So both are successfully 3D printing now. But anyway, that group grew to what is it now? 20? I don't know. Charlie, are you on? Hey, what's up, WFO Rider? I don't have this video for the people that, the friends of mine that followed me over that are going through this. The video is open and it's on my old YouTube channel. So some people from way back in the day may pop in like WFO Rider. Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for stopping by. I'm just running some friends of mine on how to get started on Etsy. 3D printing to make some money, even though I don't do it anymore. Shite, I forgot where I was at now. Oh, so anyway, the group grew way out of control, and it was just a lot of drama. And then I started to resent it, and I started to hate it, and like I dipped out, like got off the internet for a few years. Hey, thanks. I guess this YouTube channel, WFO Rider, is gonna be kicked back up as I'm running through a couple friends on how to get started on Etsy. A buddy of mine that used to be my boss in the Army, and I was artillery with at the same time in Korea way back in '94. But hey, thanks. I don't got any hair. See, I lost it all, so I started shaving it. So back to the story. Long story short, taught a lot of people how to make money. The naysayers went away. Etsy has grown to this from like, I think when I started 3D printing and selling on Etsy, I think there was maybe 50 to 70 shops. There wasn't that much. Now there's hundreds. But yeah, when I look through, I still see. Well, I know that you can still do it. You can still make as much money as you want on Etsy. Because the guy that I recently ran through, John, that I talk about, because I tested it on him to see if it still worked, and it still works. So if you're watching this video and you want to make money, Tim, or I don't know if Cliff is on, or I don't know who's on besides WFO Rider. I know you're on. But whoever's watching this after the fact, because the video is going to be up, if you want to make money, you can make as much as you want. And you don't have to stick to 3D printing. You can go in the other areas. Like with Joe, he's moved into lasering. And I think Joe brought home 150,000 on Etsy last year. Hey, what's up, Mike? How's it going, man? So I think that while Etsy is quite a bit more competitive, you can still make as much as you want to make, depending on how much work you want to put into it. And like I said, I tested all of this. Even though I haven't done it in a while, I tested the principles on my buddy John at work, and John did it. John cleared in February. I think it was February. I think John cleared, or no, was it January? January, February, John cleared 2,000. So he was on a progressive spike up. So, how you been, Mike? I forgot where I left off. Let's go back. So, okay. So the homework, if you don't know how to 3D print, is to watch Chep's videos and go through these two playlists. You can get through both of these playlists in a day. If you're motivated, you get through. I think I added it up, and it was maybe like 4 hours worth of videos, 3 or 4 hours. So if you were super motivated and you want to get through in a day, and then reference them as you learn to 3D print, you could do that. If you want to split over for a week, you could do that. But this train is going to keep moving. I hope, like for Tim and whoever else wants to spin this up, I'm going to keep moving. You'll have the guides in the Facebook group, the videos. You can reference them and get going. Some other stuff that I'm going to put into some of the links is like where you get models from, like one of the first place. And there's going to be a whole video on how to select models and how to deal with model creators and the different licensing. But you're probably wondering, well, like, what am I going to 3D print? There's this website called Thingiverse. You go to Thingiverse and you can get stuff to 3D print. I'm going to show you how to sort through this. I'm going to show you I think you pick winning models for Etsy. I'm going to show you how to think of your own, how to find a designer, how to get your own models made and done, so you don't have to always rely on someone else's commercially allowed or models with a license that allows commercial use. There's also a Yegi, which is another like a meta search. It searches Thingiverse and a whole bunch of other repositories. I use Yegi pretty frequently. I know there's others like stlfinder.com. Like stick in Overwatch, which will definitely get you a takedown notice on we just started this, Mike. So if you want to join the Facebook group, it's Chris Elkins 3D Printing for Profit. We just started up, a little more organized this time. It has some guides in. You can get motivated with some of the other new guys that are starting out, some buddies of mine. I just did Squirrel. So anyway, STL Finder, what did I say? Overwatch. And this will search throughout you see it's pulling a majority of Thingiverse, but you see My Mini Factory. So you will, and you're going to run across this in like Chep. When you go through the Chep videos, I think he talks about Thingiverse and the different repositories and where you can get models. But like I said, I'm going to have a whole video dedicated. I think I will do that sometime during the week, maybe before the weekend. And of course, it'll be up on this YouTube channel. and I think YouTube preserves the chat now on live streams. It didn't used to before, so you'll be able to follow along with if anyone has questions. Um, let me see if I left off here, and that's really, I think, it for this one. I'm always going to have the modules ahead of time, and then I'm going to use the videos to support the modules. So we went through the first one, getting started, what you'll need, and the second one is learning to 3D print, the hardest part of this process. So anyway, getting back into the old story about the old 3D printing for profit group that grew way too fast, way too many people, and I ended up hating it. It was stressful and just a lot of drama. There was just a lot of people that would constantly ask questions that were addressed somewhere. Videos were put out much like this, and if they had just taken the time to sit through and spend the 40 minutes or 50 minutes and watch the video, their question would have been answered. But the group was constantly inundated with the same questions over and over again, or like, how do I 3D print? And a lot of these questions, especially now, since many years ago, like for 3D printing, of course, I don't mind answering questions, especially when it comes down to troubleshooting. I still have a knack for, basically, you can describe any problem you're having with a 3D printer, and I feel like Rain Man, I still can pretty much nail what's wrong with it right away, remotely, with just hearing what's wrong. I don't have to see it, you just describe it. So that gift is still there, but the basics of 3D printing will all be handled in Chep's videos, along with profiles to all. I think he has profiles to all the free slicers, and I heard his Cura profile is really good. So the links to these are in the Facebook group in the file section. Run through those. Feel free. I'm not trying to discourage questions. I like questions, but I like questions after you've done the work to watch the videos. So, barring any questions on any of that, the next plan is to talk about Etsy and talk about how to select models. And that will be the next video. I think I will, like I said, I'll try to do that midweek, but worst case scenario, then we'll do it again next Saturday. So I'll open the floor. I think there's 6 people watching right now, though I can't see who or what. All I can see is Mike is still in. I think I can only see if people chat when I look at the users in or the participants. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. The most common questions I get is, how much can I make? You can make as much as you want to put work into it. The system that I'm going to teach you will give you certain tasks to do, like add like 5, let's say 5 to 10 like models to your shop every week or two. So it'll give you metrics to do, and then if you follow that trajectory, at some point you'll be making $1,000 a month, and you just keep following the steps till you make $2,000 a month, and keep following steps till you make 3, and it's Etsy. It's like riding a wave. Sometimes you just never know when the big one's coming, and sales will be up. But if you follow the formula and you consistently build your shop out, then your waves will be at a much higher threshold. So you will have waves, but your waves will be in the couple $1,000 range. Like, instead of having a range of, well, this month I may make 700 to 2,000, then you may have a threshold of, I'm going to hit 2,000 to 3,000 or 2,000 to 3,500 or something like that. So it's all on how much you want to put in, and it's how much you want to expand too. Like one mistake that I made was I was making enough that I could have moved it out of my house, and I could have hired somebody, and I should have. I could have rented a commercial space in an industrial area not far from my house for, like, I could have got a nice, like, fucking steel prefab commercial space for $600 a month, and I could have paid some kids $10 an hour on shifts to do most of the printing and packing and shipping, and I could have autopiloted the business. Instead, I got so successful that I kind of became a victim of my own success, and it burned me out. I would come home from work after 8 hours, and I would spend another 10 on my Etsy shop. The money was great, I never had time to spend it, but the money was great. I mean, who doesn't want to bring home an extra $6,000-7,000 a month? But it was murdering me. And I think when I walked away from my Etsy shop, I was doing like 80 orders a day. And every day I would get 40 orders out, and I would see that number climbing, and I couldn't even get enough printers in my house. And at that point, I just walked away from it. But here I am. I'm going to start another Etsy shop with my daughter, because my daughter is going to school, and a lot of it's from home, and she wants to have a job. And with all this COVID stuff, it'll be easy for her to just work in the basement and make some money as she goes to school. So I'll be doing my Etsy shop right along with whoever is starting this. So that's all I got. That was 45 minutes. I tried to keep it under an hour. But yeah, this is the kind of like easy part. This is the kind of the fluffy part. And probably a lot of the people that have already watched this didn't really need the getting started, what will you need, and the learning the 3D print, the hardest part of this process. But once again, we got to teach to the lowest level of skill among us, which I think that we have at least one that hasn't even 3D printed before, or touched a 3D printer. So, all right. Well, thanks for stopping by. I'll give it just a minute. If there's any questions, comments, concerns. Hey, you got it, Mike. Don't mention it, man. Thanks for stopping by too. And I know this YouTube channel is dusty. I don't think I've really touched it since the end of 2016, except for like once or twice when I was goofing off with a new printer. But thanks for stopping by, dude. And I will schedule these live streams like way ahead of time, so they should, if you're subscribed, they should show up on your feed, or they'll be in the Facebook group. So definitely keep an eye out. My email hasn't changed. It's chrishuggins@gmail.com. If you have any questions, you can always email me if you don't want to ask in Facebook. But all right. Well, thanks for stopping by. I hope you learned something. Catch you later.